The death of video game journalism. Do you know who killed video game journalism? Me. You know who else killed it? You. You did this.
Welcome to the beginning of the end of video game media.
The beginning of the end started about 7 years ago, but yes. Now people are starting to realize it.
Video game websites and guides and bloggers and journalists and the whole 9 yards. And to be honest, a lot of people have already been talking about this, but it's been such a dry conversation because they haven't been focusing it on the people that matter the most, which is you, the viewer.
That's right.
The one that's consuming that content to begin with, that's reading those articles, that are watching videos like this or looking up guides and hints and things like that.
Yep.
Instead, the conversation's been around people losing their jobs and layoffs and how hard it's going to be to compete against AI and the prevalence of AI taking over these jobs. And
if you're a journalist and you can get replaced by AI, so I want to use a little bit of logic here, okay? So if journalism is about uncovering new information and AI can already only scrub existing information, if you can get replaced by AI, that means that you're not really providing anything new. I'm just thinking, guys. That's it. I'm just thinking. I'm sorry. I'll stop doing that now.
Nobody cares. At the end of the day, we are selfish creatures that care about ourselves more than anything else, and we want to know how this affects us. And for the most part, most of us see this as, well, I can't trust these people to begin with. Get rid of these journalist losers. They've screwed me over more times than I can count. I don't blame you for saying that, but this does affect you. And to be honest, it's not good. Paul Tossi over at Forbes writes...
It's a great point. He's actually making a great point, is that we should have games journalism. We should have good journalism, and the idea that journalism as a medium is dying is bad for the consumer in the long term. But I think that people celebrate it as a win because in the short term, it feels extremely deserved.
Article titled,
It's
IGN
bad.
buys 4 major gaming sites as games journalism keeps spiraling. IGN Entertainment, owned by Ziff Davis, has now bought the entire gamer network of brands, which includes at least 4 of the highest profile gaming sites left alive in the space, and stakes in others. The purchase includes Eurogamer, GameIndustry.biz, Rock Paper Shotgun, and VG247. Then shares in Outside Xbox, Digital Foundry, Nintendo Life, Push Square, Pure Xbox, and Time Extension. The move has already resulted in significant redundancy layoffs of acclaimed journalists across the brands as they are absorbed into the megasite. While consolidation is generally not great in any industry, games journalism is especially struggling as moves like this are only going to make things worse. Mid-level or smaller sites are already fighting against YouTube and Twitch.
This is why games journalism is dying right here. It's dishonest communication, and a lot of people don't even realize it because... So this is one of my favorite things to do, is to tell people the truth and at the same time lie to them. Yeah, I love this. It's my favorite game to play with people. I used to love doing this in WoW because I would figure out a way that I would tell people that I was ninja looting, but then they wouldn't actually believe it. It was like, because I figured if I'm lying, then it's not fun anymore. That's like cheating. It's like the only way that's entertaining and fun is if you can manipulate people and tell them the truth and make them believe that it's a lie or mislead them. This is, I can see this instantaneously, right? Yeah, Jack Sparrow never lied. Yes, if you ever lie, I feel like you're cheating. It's not fun anymore. So this is a great example of it. So mid-level or smaller sites are already fighting against YouTube and Twitch. What does this imply? The implication of this is that larger sites are not fighting against YouTube and Twitch, which is in fact a complete lie. And so the implication here is that the larger sites will be immune to this negative reaction from YouTube. And why is this written? Well, it's written because it's written by somebody who's writing it on Forbes, and on Forbes is a big site. So it implies the continuation of their career, the continuation of their business, and everything like this. However, it's not necessarily true. The fact is that all of these websites are being cannibalized by YouTube and Twitch. They all are. It's not like, oh, well, it's only the mid-level and the smaller ones. In fact, I actually think the big ones are like they're losing more, especially if you look at it instead of like proportionally, just numerically, they're losing way more. So again, do you see what I'm saying about how this messaging? Do you see this? Do you see this? I'm seeing a lot. I see it a lot.
For visibility against YouTube's increasingly actively hostile search policies, which now include AI ripoffs of their articles as of last week.
Yes.
But now you have a site like IGN owning 5 major brands that can populate the entire link list for a given topic, in theory. And Paul's absolutely right by this, because if we go to Google and we search Summer Games Fest, in the first 10 results, we get Rock, Paper, Shotgun, VG 24/7, Eurogamer, and VG Charts, all of them under this new IGN umbrella. Now, I think it's pretty obvious to see how bad of a thing this is, because that means that they have full reign and authority to be able to control whatever narrative that they want, because IGN was already the most viewed video game website on the internet.
It was.
They were the biggest leader across the board.
You can look this up on Google Trends.
Now they own the other biggest leaders. There's not very many other ones that are out there, and they can just go ahead and buy those too if they really wanted to.
All right. I'm gonna just kind of give my conclusion of this. I don't care if we have video game journalism monopoly, because we already have had that for 10 years. Whenever companies behave in the exact same way and they function as a monopoly, don't expect me to cry whenever they actually become one. The reality is that every single video game journalism website, excuse me, that was me, not you. Every single video game journalism website has the exact same opinion about every single topic. Every single divisive topic, they think the exact same thing. So, for example, Hogwarts Legacy, they were all bringing up the J.K. Rowling transphobia stuff. They were. Every single one was doing that. Then with the, I'm trying to think, what are some other examples of this? Jesus, I hate journalism. Yeah, I think that's probably the first one. Stellar Blade, great example. Thank you. Every single one of these websites was bringing up the fact that Stellar Blade was sexualizing women in a way that was not good, right? Resident Evil 5 Remake was another one. Final Fantasy 16 was another one. Pal World is another one. So every single one of these journalism websites has the exact same narrative that they're pushing. So why do you expect me to care that you're being bought out as a monopoly whenever you've been behaving like a monopoly for years? There's no diversity at all of thought. There's no people that are talking about how any of this stuff is actually good. Nobody has any hot takes. There's no actual fucking spectrum of opinions. You have one opinion, and it's just being represented on 5 different websites. So why the fuck do you expect me to care whenever 5 websites get bought by one company that has one opinion, whenever all 5 of the websites already had the same opinion to begin with? That's why it's dying collectively too. It's because every website only pushes one agenda. That's it. And that's why they're dying. And whenever I say they're dying, I pulled this up 5 times. I don't want to do it again. Go to Google Trends right now. If you don't believe me, go to Google Trends, look up Kotaku, Rock, Paper, Shotgun, PC Gamer, IGN. Set the trend and the search results for 2004 to now, and you're going to see it fucking crater. And there's a reason for that. It's because their opinions do not represent what the audience believes. Do you think IGN will have the same fate, or is it too big to fail? It already has had that. It already has. You just look at the graph. It's happened. They're dying because they push any agenda, really? People are tired of it? Yeah, they are. They're also saying Star Wars fans are racist because they don't want to support their shit as well. Yeah, I haven't really seen a lot about that, but yeah. Look at the graph. Yeah, we want to look at the graphs, guys. That's what matters the most. And so, yes, this is the reason why gaming journalism is dying. It's because there's only one popular opinion that you are allowed to have. It's not that journalists are afraid of any own opinion. They're afraid of any opinion that's not their own.
With that is that they can make or break games or mislead us as they want to. And I know some people are going to probably sit there and say, dude, that doesn't matter. I watch YouTube videos. I watch Twitch streamers. I don't read any of these articles or anything like that. I don't trust IGN or Game Informer Eurogamer or whoever. And while that's cool, realize that the vast majority of information that YouTubers, Twitch streamers, or whoever else gets is coming from these sources because they have more connections and resources than we do. And we don't have the kind of ability to be able to go and talk to some of these developers and get in.
Well, that's the real problem. That's a big problem. I think that these resources should be given to content creators more than these journalists. And to the extent that the journalism falls off more, it will happen inevitably. Even if the companies don't want to do it, because remember, the companies don't care about any message, they only care about money. So if these journalists aren't getting any sort of like real attention and they're not getting their message out, they'll start to think about it like this. Blizzard has done things with me before. That's bad. That is bad.
Insider information and be able to share it with other people. We have to get it from a source.
It matters
first.
less and less.
And now that source is being corrupted, which means the information that we're getting is also potentially at risk, and that's a problem. And while we can try to do our best to have journalistic integrity or video journalistic integrity, I don't exactly know how that works, but we'll try to do our due diligence. At the exact same time, there's going to be some situations in which we're going to be misinformed because these companies are controlling the narrative.
That's definitely true. And everybody can always be misinformed. I think the problem is like everybody makes mistakes. I've made mistakes. He's made mistakes. Everybody's made mistakes. The problem isn't really making mistakes. The problem is not trying to correct them. Everybody will make mistakes.
And the other problem is that while what Paul says when he's talking about how Google's algorithm is actively hostile towards these brands, he's not wrong, by the way.
No, he's not.
This problem is getting worse.
But it's not because of AI. It's because of money. And it's because Google pushes too many sponsored search results over search results that are more accurate. That's the reason why it's hostile.
Just the games journalism, it's also just AI and these websites in general, because if you guys have searched for anything lately on YouTube or search for anything lately on Google, you'll notice that you're getting very curated results very quickly. And one of those things is that I haven't even had to look at any video game wikis anymore, because if I type into Google, hey, how do I get this one thing, or where do I farm this certain item or weapon or whatever it is, Google just straight up tells me without me ever having to even look at a wiki in the first place.
By the way, I don't think that's hostile to the websites. Like, if listen, you put that information out there, then of course people are going to be able to do that. That's not Google being bad. That's Google being good. And I don't really care about like, oh, well, that's not good for the website. Like, why would I care about the website? Like, I just want to get the information.
And drives the ad revenue down for those websites and then makes those websites not able to exist. And if those websites don't exist, then Google can't get the information to be able to display it to us. So it's a vicious cycle that's only going to get worse. Paul Tossi continues with, while this is the latest move, we have other smaller ones in the past. Fandom bought GameSpot, Giant Bomb, and even Metacritic, the all-important aggregator, back in 2022. The Gamer Network, that's with a U, so we know it's for gamers, has over a dozen publications, including Destructoid, The Escapist, GamePer, and Twinfinite.
For gamers only.
There are some big-name sites that are relatively standalone, or at least the only gaming site in their network. Polygon seems to be the healthiest, perhaps, while something like Kotaku seems constantly on death's door with a skeleton staff that's trying to fight against its poor private equity management.
And this is also another problem that I think a lot of these, gaming journalists make, is that they try to... It's like there's an elephant in the room, and nobody wants to pretend that it exists. The real reason why people aren't reading these websites and reading these articles is because the articles are pushing agendas, and they're from people that are pushing agendas that don't resonate with what the audience wants or thinks. And it's so diametrically opposed that nobody wants to consume the content at all. That's the big reason. It's a huge fucking factor. Like, to act like that doesn't have anything to do with it is completely fucking dishonest. It is, and I saw Jason Schreier do the same thing today. I'll go ahead and I'll pull it up real quick. Let me see if I can find this here. Jason Schreier, yeah, here we go. And he did like what went wrong with Suicide Squad, killed the Justice League, and it was something about like Sweet Baby, right? Let me see if I can find it. Let me see here. So, not one mention of the woke tone turning off fans or Sweet Baby Inc. influence, really, Jason. The article is about what actually happened. You see, like, and this is a huge problem, right? Is that Jason is, I think, right about this in some ways, but he's not right about this in this way. He's absolutely not. Because the fact is that a lot of people probably didn't buy the game because they thought the game was woke. That absolutely is a factor of what went wrong with it. Well, one thing that went wrong with it, I'll tell you what that was. It's because people thought this about the game. And if you don't explore that idea, you are being dishonest. Because if you look at, for example, Suicide Squad Watch the Justice League, look at any YouTube video. I'm not going to pull them up right now. A lot of them probably would be mine. But these are videos that have, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of views. And these are all videos talking about one topic, and then you think that doesn't have anything to do with what happened to the game being unsuccessful? Only obsessed weirdos care about wokeness? Okay, well, there's a lot of obsessed weirdos then. Like, I don't know what you want me to say. Like, again, if you don't, and this is the problem, it's not about what you think. Like, this is the problem with journalism. Is it and even people on the internet in general, it's not about what you think. It's not about how you think people should look at something. It's about how they do look at it. And if you look at the world through the lens of the way that you want it to be, you are intentionally lying to yourself. You're lying to everyone. And that's the reason why I find it to be so problematic. It's because it's a fucking lie. Most game journalists have pronouns in bio. I think that's not really, a lot of people have pronouns in bio. That's not it. It's a valid point. He made the point. He interviewed multiple people and none mentioned that they thought that was the reason. So what do you mean? And this is the problem. And I want to go ahead and listen to this. And this is the issue with how journalism works, because you bring up a great point. I'm not mad at you, but I think that the point that you're making is actually indicative of the problem in an even deeper level. So he's saying that this point that was made is that Jason Schreier interviewed a lot of the people at the company and none of them brought this up. Do you know why? Because if they had brought it up, they would have been fucking fired. It's like, for example, like imagine interviewing a bunch of Boeing people and be like, why do you think the stock is going down? Why do you guys think that, people don't trust your products as much anymore? What do you think they would say? I guarantee you I know what they wouldn't say. We all know what they wouldn't say. And do you know why? It's because they don't want people to think this. Of course they're not going to bring that up as a reason, because if they did, they'd be putting their entire job at risk, because they would be going against the narrative of what all of these other companies are trying to push. Imagine doing that. It's career suicide to say that. So, of course, whenever you interview them, and this is, again, selection bias. You should know this. You see my point? You see my point? Just a minute, he said something. I see your point. I can't speak for the article, but it isn't anonymous interviews standard practice to protect others. I think that they could be anonymous, but they also could be not anonymous to the, like, so for example, they're anonymous to the public, but the interviews were decided by the people that were at the company. And also, it could also be very simply that the people at the company don't want to talk about that on a personal level, right? Like, they believe that messaging and they want to keep pushing that, so they don't want to acknowledge that this was a massive elephant in the room that nobody's talking about. And do you guys see kind of why I'm bringing up this example along with this other example? Because there's this huge problem, and everybody, all of these developers and these journalists want to pretend like it's not there. Well, if it's not there, then why are the graphs going like this? Then why is everybody talking about it? How is it that this thing that's not real is somehow the main topic of conversation in every other form of media except your own? It's the emperor's new clothes. The dishonesty is crazy, and that's why people don't trust them. Do you actually think it's a lot of people and not just the internet vocal minority? Most normal people never come in contact with this? Genuine question. if normal people are not coming in contact with it, that doesn't necessarily, normal people are not reading video game journalism articles, number one. Number two, I don't think that people really make a decision based off of this, but if somebody gets a bad vibe from a game, then they're going to choose not to do it. I think that, yes, obviously, there is like a large swath of people that are not consuming any of this content and just making decisions independently. You're definitely right. And there are people that are kind of like, like they'll just get mad at things recreationally, then move on. It's like just internet, hate mob stuff. But the fact is that these things are being represented in graphs as well, right? I feel like there wouldn't be the graphs if it was all just an internet mirage.
Elsewhere, there are major brands like the New York Times and Forbes in the gaming space covering the massive industry that make it harder for smaller sites to compete. But even there are problems. The Washington Post recently called almost its entire gaming vertical cut down to more or less one guy. Hi, Gene. Consolidation sucks in general, and he kind of brushes over it, but using Metacritic as...
Well, the reason why is because the articles aren't making any money. Like, why are we talking about how this is like a bad thing? Oh, the Washington Post got rid of all these people. Do you know why they got rid of all those people? It's because those people weren't making them any money and the articles they were writing were bad. That's the reason why. I don't think this issue is unique to gaming. It isn't, but because gaming is much more consolidated than something really large like politics, it's easier to identify the issues.
Great example. When they were purchased by Fandom, I threw Metacritic out the window because I viewed it as compromised. Because it's now owned by a company that owns video game publications and journalists.
This is maybe another hot take. Everything is compromised. Everything you should second guess. You shouldn't believe anything until you verify it, even if it's something you agree with, especially if it's something you agree with. It doesn't matter any of this stuff. Always, always, always be skeptical about everything.
That review games, and then they get to control and curate what those scores are, whose scores they include, what scores they don't, how those scores are tallied, and everything like that. And then they get to play whatever tune they want to get us to buy whatever they want us to buy. And I don't appreciate that. That's not something that I want.
Sure.
So I pretty much only use OpenCritic from time to time, Steam reviews.
Somebody says even about me, of course I'm compromised. Absolutely. Like, I have my own biases, my own opinions, and my own thoughts and everything, and I've had my own experiences that can differ from other people's, and because of that, I'm going to give a take that sometimes other people won't resonate with, and they might not agree with. So everything that even I say, you should definitely take a second to be like, is this actually true? Ask yourself the question, like, does this really true? You shouldn't just listen to what I'm saying and be like, oh yeah, I agree, right? You should think about it and think, do you really agree? Trust but verify, yes.
Or the eye test and watch somebody else play it to see if it's something that I'm going to like playing. Yeah. And that sucks because that means that there's less places for us to be able to get more information for us to make educated purchases. And obviously, if you guys have watched any of my videos in the past, that's something that I'm a big fan of. That one of the other things that Paul brings up, and he's talking about these bigger gaming sites or these bigger publications in general, and he's talking about the New York Times or Forbes.
Yeah, these are not gaming websites, by the way. Steam reviews, again, are so good. Yeah, like, do I want to hear somebody's opinion about the game that's played it as a journalist for like 15 hours? Or I want to hear like some fucking loser addict that's put 378 hours on the game and rates it as a bad game, and like he rated it as a bad game 200 hours into the playthrough. And so he's put 170 more hours into the playthrough after he said it was a bad game. He wouldn't recommend it. That's who I want to hear from. I want to hear from him because he knows what he's talking about. This guy's a fucking professional.
And what's really funny is with Paul's article specifically is anytime there's any big, huge gaming news, their website is almost always at the top, specifically because Forbes is such a high-traffic site to begin with. It's a respected site. It's been around for many, many years, and it's used for all kinds of different things.
I would agree with that. I think that Forbes is probably one of the more respected websites even now. Like in spectrum, right? A lot of people don't respect any journalism, but inside of the scope of not respecting any journalism, people don't respect Forbes the least. If that makes sense.
It's going to be ranked higher in any search result.
Yeah.
And what sucks about that is that when you start putting more and more of these publications, more of these higher end publications at the very top, then that means the smaller guys don't really have much of a voice. They end up dying as a result. and then now you're left with just a few opinions. And as these companies continue to lay off and get rid of people, well, that's a problem too, because now there's less voices and less types of opinions at the...
No, I don't think that's the reason. I think the reason is because, basically, so there's an ecosystem that these reviews exist in, and in order to understand why reviews are the way they are, you have to understand what the ecosystem really is. So the way the ecosystem works is that reviews are written, and then ads are placed on the reviews that then drive traffic to the website. So if the advertisements are not there, then the website doesn't make any money. And then if the website doesn't make any money, the reviews stop existing. So what ends up happening is that if somebody puts out a review and it's something that goes against like what is traditional gaming journalism, messaging, everybody goes out of their mind and they try to get these people deplatformed. I think a great example of this is me. Look about I feel like what I say on my channel, I think that I'm like one of the only people that's talking sense. Very few people, I think, are trying to look at things critically and objectively. And obviously, right? Again, maybe I'm being delusional, right? Maybe. But like this is my own delusions of grandeur, right? And so I believe that I'm looking at things in the most objective way that I possibly can, right? I really, really try to do that. And I also don't think that I'm really a bad actor. But if you read what people say about me on Twitter, you'd think that I've already killed probably at least, 3 kittens today? Minimum, right? Probably more. I ate one of them. And so if you read this stuff, you think I'm the worst person ever. Why is it? Well, it's because I made a tweet from like 4 years ago. Maybe it's because I said something or I laughed at a joke or, I called somebody a retard or I didn't like a video game or, it's just always something stupid, right? And what happens is that these websites get like these people that create narratives, these bad narratives about them, and then it destroys their reputation, and then the advertisers leave. Because the advertisers don't want to be sponsored. Like, they're not really making a lot of money out of this anyway, right? Because these websites don't really make a lot of money. So it's not worth the brand risk for them to associate with somebody that everybody says hates gay people or they hate women or something like that. So, like, for example, if a small website writes an article about how the sexualization in Stellar Blade is actually good, and then every other person writes an article about how that person is sexist and that website is sexist, and then that website loses its monetization because the advertisers are bullied into leaving, well, then guess what happens? The same exact thing. So whenever video game journalists are complaining about the fact that there's only one message and journalism is becoming more consolidated, the reason for that is because of your own actions. It's because you're creating narratives that don't exist. You're saying things that aren't true. You're drawing correlations that aren't there. So yes, whenever you take all of these other people like, oh, YouTubers are racist or sexist or whatever, what? No, what are you talking about? You did this to yourself. Yes, you did. No. And so this is the exact result, is because whenever you go after, and they do this with a sense of moral authority. They do it as if, oh yeah, I'm doing this because I'm fighting the good fight. I'm on the right side of history. Everybody who's fucking fighting at any time, that everybody thinks they're on the right side of history. That's the stupidest argument you can ever think of. Oh, of course you are. Yeah, they're shunning your audience. Exactly. Attack the character, not the argument. And it works. That's why they do it. They think they're morally superior. And so that's why you don't see any of these smaller websites. It's because whenever these smaller websites or these smaller people, think about whenever I step out of line and I say something that like people in journalism dislike. Everybody's writing an article about me. I'm so bad. I'm so bad. I'm so bad. Sexist, racist, everything, right? And it's like as soon as you're one, you're all of them. And Dexter, yeah, exactly. And so if you do this against a smaller website, it's going to massively damage the website's credibility. It's going to really hurt that website in a big way. And so that's why it's happened too. The line is very thin nowadays, so there's no line. It's just depending. Imagine respecting other people's opinions. No, it doesn't happen. Isn't it just a vocal minority who cares about what they say? Well, the advertisers do, which is why at the beginning of this conversation, I wanted to create the framework of how they exist in the ecosystem and how websites have to have opinions that are congruent with what advertisers are okay with. Because if they don't have that, then other websites and other people bully the advertisers into leaving, which forces the website into changing. It's an ecosystem that they exist in. And I'm explaining the cause and effect of the different factors inside of the ecosystem.
These companies, and you're only getting, as an example with Forbes, you're only getting one or two guys' opinion, and they start sounding the exact same. He gives the example of another publication that really only has one guy. Again, now you only have one voice at that entire publication.
You always had one voice. It's always how it was. Somebody says, does it bother you in any way if they write articles about you that aren't true? Who cares? I can't, it's their freedom of speech. They can write whatever they want. Now, obviously, at some point it might be defamation or something like that. But overall, no, I say negative things about them too. That's the game. I'm fine with it. It's okay. They say whatever they want.
And you get a bit of an echo chamber across all of these companies, especially as they consolidate. Mm-hmm. That sucks. That's not good in general, because now we don't have access to the variety of opinions that we once had for us to be able to...
We never did. We never did. And I encourage anyone who doesn't believe what I'm saying to look it up for themselves. Don't take my word for it. Do not take my word. Don't listen to me. I want you to look up the different opinions that people have on a Resident Evil 5 remake, on Stellar Blade, and on Hogwarts Legacy. Look those up and then tell me if we're not already in this place and we haven't been here for years.
Discern and come up with opinions of our own and make educated opinions as a result of that. If you look at any of your favorite YouTubers or Twitch streamers or whatever, one of the reasons why we have the ability to be able to come up with the opinions that we have is because we go through and we read a bunch of these articles, we watch a bunch of different videos, and we try to get as many different opinions as possible. As far to
and that's again, I like him bringing this up because this is a great point, because it goes back to a very functional argument that people want to have different opinions even if they disagree with them. If you look at the people that I follow on Twitter, I follow a lot of psychos on Twitter. It doesn't mean I agree with them, but I'm like, what was he saying, right? I want to keep up with it, right? And so this happens all the time.
Side or the other, to try to find where we want to be in the middle. You know what I mean?
True.
But one of the other things that I have a problem with too, and he doesn't really bring this up, but I think it's going to be a really big issue, is that as more and more of this information becomes difficult to attain, it's going to make it difficult for new people to get involved in content creation, regardless of wherever it is. If it's YouTube, Twitch, on journalism or bloggers, whatever it might be. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I say that is because if gaming media continues to die off the way that it is, well, then YouTubers that have access to these developers and access to that information are going to be the only ones that can actually control that information. And everybody else just going to have to react to whatever they say. And that's just not something that's good.
That's already what's happening. It's just now that somebody else is wearing the hat. I don't really think that's any sort of unique problem versus what we have right now. I also don't think that games media is dying. I think games media as a collective is massively growing. I think that especially if you measure the amount of, impressions that games media gets now versus pre-COVID, 2018, 2019, especially pre-Fortnite, I bet if you looked at 2016 versus now, you would see games media with probably close to a 2x. Whereas you had 100, now you have 200. If you had 1,000, now you have 2,000. I think that it's massively increased in a huge way. So it's not really that games journalism or games media is dying. It's that traditional games journalism is dying. Then why the consolidation? Because video game journalism is a very small, really simple, right? This is how big games media is. This is games journalism. It's that simple.
Of the Google algorithm or YouTube algorithm, or just healthy for creators in general. And channels like mine, smaller channels like mine, wouldn't be able to exist if it wasn't for the fact that these publications and opinions have been around. Because if all of this information was being controlled by Skill Up and Gamer Ranks and IGN's YouTube channel and things like that, well, then I wouldn't have as much to deliver to you because I wouldn't have as many opinions and variety of content to be able to look through and wade through and bring to you. Paul continues with something interesting, saying that there is a public war against the games journalist by, in part, the anti-woke crowd who believe that progressive-leaning outlets are going extinct because of allegedly activist takes.
They are. It's true. It's obvious. And that's why the decline happened after Gamergate. Read the graphs. I don't like opinions. I will have an opinion if I have to have an opinion. But what I like a lot more than opinions are graphs. Read the fucking graph.
And there are also console fanboys who are constantly ripping outlets for allegedly favoring one.
That's a fucking fact. He's right about that. 100% right. Oh my God. Bro. Oh yeah. That there it is.
Piece of hardware over another, or lambasting them for inconsistent opinions across dozens of writers who have diverse viewpoints.
Paul's right about this too, by the way. He's completely right. All the time I'll see a website where it's like, which one is it, Kotaku? Which one is it, IGN? And it's like 2 articles written by different people.
In short, when you bring up the layoffs and general destruction of the industry, the reaction from gamers is often a disheartening, good, they deserve it. I'm going to need you to pump the brakes there, Paul. See, I like being a...
No. I'll say it. Good, they deserve it. That's exactly what I think. If you misuse your position, if you mischaracterize your audience, if you mislead them intentionally, you will lose your audience and your industry will die. And that's exactly what's happened. It's a fact, and you can prove it. Every single one of you can prove it. Content creators have had this same problem. Yes, you get what you fucking deserve. That's right. They forgot who the bottom line was. They thought they were the bottom line. The customer is the bottom line.
Able to have access to a variety of different opinions. It gives me the opportunity to be able to contrast my perspective with the perspective of hundreds or thousands of other people, and allows me to
act like the opinions and the seemingly like hegemony of like opinions that like gaming journalism have has no impact on people taking it seriously. This would be immediately disproven by asking a person, do you think that, like, these people, do you believe in Fox News? Would you believe Fox News? No, I won't. Why? Well, because they have stupid opinions. Exactly. Fucking exactly. So how is it so incomprehensible to imagine that people think the same thing about you? It just... And again, people have self-referential logic. Well, what I think is real and what everybody else thinks is fake, and so everybody else should think what I think, and anybody who's not isn't in reality. That's fine, but there's plenty of people that believe in flat Earth, and they still fucking vote. That's the problem. Main character syndrome.
My opinion down to something that I think is educated and worthwhile.
And I just like the point I'm bringing that up is their argumentation immediately consumes itself. It immediately disproves itself as soon as you ask them why they don't believe other sites. Everybody knows this to be true, but people can only create an argument with it inside of a vacuum. The strongest arguments are the ones that can be used across different examples. If you can only make an argument inside of one insular example and it can't be applied to anything else, it's probably a bad argument.
That said, we can't say allegedly activist takes when they are purely
thanks for watching. This is a great video.
Purely pandering, purely virtue signaling more than anything else. Look at half of the dialogue that was around Stellar Blade.
Oh, yes,
Baldur's Gate 3 at one point.
Holy fuck.
How about the fact that Polygon
by the way, nobody wrote an article about how Baldur's Gate 3, the bear sex scene, was promoting bestiality. Nobody wrote an article about how it was promoting degeneracy and it was making our culture worse. Nobody wrote an article about that, did they? Now, I think it's funny, but the fact is that a lot of people didn't. And that is, again, another example of a completely one-sided type of conversation. I didn't buy the game because of it? Well, good for you. I'm proud of you. Like, good job. Pat yourself on the back. Even if it's true, it's not a good argument. Yes. It's cherry-picked. And so I just want to make sure, like, this exists whenever games are bad, too. It's completely one-sided.
Out an article talking about how Helldivers 2 was making people fascists. Come on, man. Look, I'm not going to sit here and cry, and I totally understand why people are cheering on the fact that some of these folks are losing their jobs and some of these publications are going out of business.
I am. I think it's good. I think that this is what needs to happen. This has been a reckoning that's needed to happen for a long time. It's been long overdue, and finally it's happening. These are people who have built their careers around misusing a position of power and import and using it to spread an agenda that does not resonate with an audience. It doesn't resonate with what the people truly believe. They also, if you disagree with them, will completely mischaracterize you in unfair ways. And this is what you fucking get. This is it. I'm sorry. I'm a spiteful person in a lot of ways. Whenever something bad happens to somebody that I don't like, it makes me happy. You get what you fucking deserve. Thank God. And not a moment too soon.
Because they have spent their time actively trying to pander to an audience
Absolutely.
that probably doesn't even exist. And if
they
it does exist, they're not even interested in that content or in those games in the first place. And then beyond that, they're spending the rest of that time talking down to an audience that put them where they are in the first place.
Yeah.
No, I'm not going to cry for them, nor should anybody else, because they're
Thank you. Fuck them. That's right. That's what you get. It's the same as, whenever a content creator, like some streamer starts making a lot of money and he's like, oh, I'm better than my viewers. Get the fuck out of here. Get out of here, pussy. Oh, now everybody's being mean to me. Yeah, because you're a fucking asshole. What are you doing?
What they deserve for doing bad business. They compromised their own integrity. They compromised their own work because I have to look through 7 or 8 layers of biases to be able to see what a rude opinion is anytime I'm reading any of those articles. Half of it is just there for engagement purposes, clickbaiting, and rage baiting more than anything else. Fuck them. Paul concludes the article with,
Man, that's a good way to say it, isn't it? That's a really good way to say it. Yep. That's crazy. How about that? Fuck them.
It's almost all bad news. Many former big names in the space either fled to PR, game development itself, or have fashioned their own independent entities like Kinda Funny Games or the recently formed Aftermath.
They fled to PR? Maybe that's why people stopped reading the articles. Says a lot.
Others have realized that you yourself sort of need to be
they already had the experience. Yeah, true.
With a big social media presence. A paywalled newsletter or your own YouTube/Twitch space to draw a consistent audience. This is essentially what I've done for the last 2 years, especially.
Legendary Drops is a great example of this. So, this guy started making content, maybe a couple of years ago. And, his videos are popular already. A lot of his videos, right? Look at this one, 127K, 200K. These videos are already getting more views than a lot of IGN videos. So, why is it that somebody who just randomly starts, and also don't be like, oh, because you watch them. I watch IGN too. I watch other places too. It's not, I've reacted to people and then nobody's going to go watch after that because maybe they don't like the video so much. It depends on what it is. So again, It's if you build it, they will come. Make good content, and people will watch it. Here's a great example. You know how like developers sometimes are like, man, oh man, we just had bad timing on our release. Man, it would have been good, but the timing just wasn't right. Elden Ring could have released 10 years ago or 10 years from now. It would have still been an insanely fucking good game. Same with Dark Souls 1. Baldur's Gate 3 could come out 10 years from now, and people would still lose their fucking mind over it. Total fucking copium. You remember whenever Enshrouded came out at the exact same time as Power World, that was like an international fucking world phenomenon, and it still held over 100, 200,000 concurrent players? Because it was still that good. Of course there are environmental factors, but they're never the deciding factor. It's the same with streamers. Kai's a great example. 10 years ago, Kai would have been extremely popular. People would love them. 10 years from now, if somebody like Kai comes on the scene again, people will still love them. That's the reason. What? Absolutely. Kai's just one example. Disagree with streamers? You disagree with streamers? Oh, I don't at all. I think that a lot of streamers, like, now, here's what happens a lot of times is, like, streamers kind of, like, they're really entertaining at the beginning, and then, like, they make enough money, then they get lazy, right? This happens a lot. But if you take, like, a lot of streamers at their best, and you place them at any period in time inside of the Twitch ecosystem, and if they came into that, because a lot of people tell themselves, oh, well, you can't get into streaming anymore. It's too populated, right? Or there's, it's too watered down. You're not going to get the exposure. Listen, there's a person who you're going to know their name next year who didn't believe that. It's all bullshit. It's all bullshit cope from people that are trying to rationalize their own failure.
It's hard to see things getting any better. I feel for my colleagues who are enduring this sort of thing essentially
Sketch and Jinxie for
every
reason.
month
Yeah, and they're great
at this point. And I feel like the recent Google AI push, especially, is a Mad Max dust storm on the horizon.
And this is another example of the one-dimensional journalism. Try to find me some articles about how AI is good for video games and is good for video game companies. And you're not going to see any of them, because all of the articles are being written from the perspective of the industry and not from the consumer. That's, again, the problem. Again, and again.
Is poised to blow everyone away for good. God help us all. Mm-hmm. What I want you guys to take away from this is that there's a lot of different things that are going on. And there's some of these companies that wholeheartedly deserve to lose their business. There's journalists that are out there that totally deserve to not have a job. But at the exact same time, there's a huge group of guys that are out there and gals that have been working really hard to bring us great information in the best way they possibly can, that have been making quality content for years. And without them, we wouldn't have access to the things that we have access to. And if we don't have access to that, then we're not making educated purchases, and we don't know more about the games that we want to know about. And we play less games as a result of that, or we play worse games as a result of that. And I don't think that's what anybody really wants.
You're right.
But at the exact same time, this is something that is totally brought on by many of these companies that are out there, because they're the ones that have, they've compromised
They've
themselves.
destroyed their reputation. And they've destroyed their reputation with their core audience.
Time and time again. They've damaged their own reputation. I don't even know how many times. Looking at websites like Kotaku or
Kotaku's the worst
Polygon
one.
or even IGN in a lot of cases as well. And, you can't expect the players and the readers to be upset or try to fight for you when you fought against them time and time again. So
that's a great point. Yeah. These websites, and a lot of times, like especially with like Kotaku and Polygon and some of them, they feel like they are directly oppositional to what their customer base and what their consumer base wants. It's directly oppositional.
One of those moments where it sucks to see some of them go away, and I don't like to see the industry continue to collapse upon itself like it is right now. But at the exact same time, like, some of it's totally deserved. But I think you want to try to do your best to, instead of directing it at the entire industry, direct it at the ones that you know are a problem, and then just keep it to that. And don't let it bleed over into anything else, because there's a ton of folks that are out there that I think are well worth keeping around.
That's also a really good point he's bringing up, is that it's sad that, like, because gaming journalism has such a bad reputation, every single person who is a gaming journalist is, like, celebrated whenever something bad happens to them. This is absolutely true. And it's disappointing that happens.
It's great that they're trying to diversify a little bit. They're getting into YouTube content creation, or they're streaming, or whatever it might be. And that's great.
And also, like, here's another, like, meta level thing, is that the consumer doesn't really care about, like, the problems that you have with your job, or, like, why those problems exist, or anything like that. Like, and I think this is especially true with, like, entertainment and journalism. Things that, you know, for example, like, a lot of work goes into streaming, but that work isn't respected by the audience. Like, if I say that, people are going to say cap. Now, if, you know, you ask a streamer, like, they'll probably think that for sure. But, like, it doesn't really matter to the audience because people don't perceive that. And the way that people perceive things is more important than what actually exists, because the way people's perception is informs their reality. So what happens is that people start trying to, it's like you want to be seen. You want people to, like, see your perspective, and, oh, I want people to, like, sympathize with me and, like, see what my problems are. Like, for example, whenever I couldn't play video, you know, like, music on my stream anymore, like I have a whole playlist here, and I listen to music all the time, but I can't play any of this music because it's like the DMCA. Like, I can't expect the audience to feel bad for me for that, because that's not their problem. Why the fuck would they care? Yeah, it might be bullshit, yeah, but, like, I can't really, like, if the content is worse, don't expect people to martyr themselves and enjoy your worst content because they feel sorry for you. You see kind of like what I'm saying here? We care. Well, yeah, you guys do care, but to the extent that you care, I get you guys care, and I appreciate that. It's great. But the difference is that if the content is really bad, like, for example, if I am, like, not feeling good, let's say in an imaginary world, I actually get sick, okay? I get genuinely sick, and I'm not able to talk on my stream, and I'm just playing video games silently. There would be less people that would watch that stream. That's just the way it is, right? That would be it. And so, is it my right to get mad at the audience for that? No, because you forget what your role is. People forget what their role is, and they get parasocial. The same way viewers, you're lying to us. No, you didn't actually do it. You feel that is that the way you really feel? Oh no, he's just doing this for money. Oh, it's not the same as it used to be. That little. If I'm not going to go any farther. If I do, I'd get banned. Anyway, streamers and content creators do the same thing. They just do it in a different way. And this is the example of that. Being parasocial is a two-way street.
But also at the same time, keep in mind that means that these bigger publications are going to be doing the exact same thing. IGN's a really good example of this. If you go to IGN right now, I think I just looked yesterday, they post like 40 to 60 videos a day.
That's a lot.
And that drowns out a lot of other voices, because that is a lot of content that's coming out. And I'm talking about everything from big games to small games. And, you know, even specifically with small games, you know, they're really just throwing out trailers and whatnot. But without some of these smaller publications that are out there, that's honestly the only way that some of these indie games can even get their name out there. Even just
I mean, I want to talk about some of the OTK Game Expo stuff, like, later on after this, maybe. Because, like, I want to talk about, like, because I want to try to play more of a role of playing smaller and indie games and doing it as kind of like, I know Lyric does this. I think Lyric, by the way, is, like, one of the best streamers on Twitch. And he does this a lot. and he'll play like these smaller games. And I want to start doing more of that myself. Soda does, yeah. I know Chance does it a bit. Like XQC kind of does it. Like I know like a lot of other people. Like I do it even sometimes too, right? But like I want to make it more of a thing.
On people's radar at all, because they don't have the money to be able to go to IGN Megacorp to be able to have them cover their game, and nor is IGN Megacorp interested in covering it because they're trying to maximize SEO because they want as many people visiting their website and viewing their YouTube videos as possible.
Yeah, and I've said many times, IGN, I think, is making a good decision by doing this. I think they're being very intelligent with the way that they're doing their YouTube channel, because they're using their YouTube channel in order to fund and offset the amount of money that they're probably losing on their website. And yeah, it's like you have to evolve and change with how the economy evolves and changes and the market changes. And IGN is doing that better than any other games company out there. I don't agree with everything that IGN says. I think a lot of their articles are misguided and wrong. But I think that their approach and like their business approach to it is the most modern.
They recognize that little baby indie game is probably not going to get them all the clicks and all the views that they need to be able to make boatloads of money. So this is something that not only hurts us as consumers because we don't have access to as much information as we should, but also at the same time, it hurts indie developers that I know a lot of us are champions of.
Yeah.
And that also sucks because that means that there's less games that are out there for us to play because we just can't find them. And
yeah, I need to play a bigger role with that.
It's not good. Yeah, even more so if you think about it. If we think that any of these companies will just make a full shift to just being like content creators instead, right? Like think if IGN just completely
I think
shut down.
IGN is trying to do this, but like they don't really know how to do it, I think. And like as I said, I support this transition. I think they're making the right call. But yeah, it's pretty clear they don't really know what they're doing. I'd be glad to consult with them or help them and, get on a call and talk about it a little bit, like what their plans are. Sure. Because like I think it's better for everybody if we have a place like IGN that's like that's doing the best that they can for us. Buy IGN. Maybe that's not going to happen. I don't have that much money. Chill out.
On all of their websites and just went straight to YouTube instead. They can pump out more content and have better access to information than any other YouTuber that's out there. And that means that like folks that are just trying to get started will probably never take off because they're never going to have that kind of access to information unless we're really trying to have the internet just be nothing but React channels. And while I appreciate some React content myself, I don't think that's the kind of website that I want to be on. And
I agree with that. I actually, this is kind of like a thing with me. I've been thinking about this a lot myself. Like, I really want to start, like, I want to start making, and I've started doing this more, right? I want to start making more of my own videos, and that way people can react to my videos, right? So, like, I can be at the front and the back of the human centipede of YouTube. And I do have, like, a lot of topics, like, I have written down on, like, my phone and everything. So I'm going to start trying to, like, record videos more regularly. Hopefully now that, like, I'm going to be trying to start earlier in the day, I can record after I go live and then talk a little bit more about that. Yeah, because I do definitely think that, like, original content's really important. Absolutely. Ooh, what topics? A lot of topics, like, I mean, there are some things about gaming journalism. I kind of did that video already. I think right now it's about indie games. I want to talk a little bit about how, like, indie games are changing and, like, how, like, well, this is completely off the point. I've got a lot of ideas.
I think that's what a lot of the content a lot of people want to watch either.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, man. Dark
like
times
Mutahar?
ahead. That's all I can
Mutahar
say.
does great.
If I had to give any piece of advice, anything that I would want people to do, find publications and find people that you want to support and support them. Actively support them. Look at, like, Second Wind. Like, say, if you like, I've always really enjoyed Second Wind's content. Some of the stuff I don't agree with, some of the stuff I do. And it goes back and forth. But with that said, I sub to them. I sub to their Patreon and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that's the best way to be able to support these folks because, well, if you don't, then they're not around. So,
yeah,
that's it. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed.
And again, that's why, by the way, these other gaming websites aren't around that much more now. It's because people aren't supporting them.
Video. I enjoyed covering this. It's nice to get back into, like, general industry topics. I haven't done this in a while, so just kind of shaking off the rust a little bit. you guys enjoyed this video,
I think he's making a good call with
the
that.
channel, or like the video, subscribe to the channel. Follow me on Twitch if you guys want to catch me live. I talk about news and stuff like that before I play games every single day. Outside of that, my friends, stay cool, stay righteous, stay safe, and I will see you in the next video.
Peace. It was a good video. So this is impressive. Despite your success, you still want to create more of your original content?
Family.
That's because
Family.
I have a different perspective on the way that like making content is, and I think also like most content creators. Like, I'm going to just kind of be real. I like making YouTube videos. I like streaming. I know this sounds crazy, but like, even whenever like we had been awake for like 20 hours, like me and SN were talking about like, maybe we should do a stream in the hotel lobby. You know, that'd be good, right? Or something like that. Like, I like doing this. I think that a lot of streamers kind of lose interest and lose focus with streaming. Like, I think this happens whenever like streamers make a lot of money and then they like hit the point where, okay, I can retire right now and I don't need to give a shit anymore. And so then they stop giving a shit. I think also some people are like, there are some people that are very creative, and then because they're creative, they feel like whenever they're doing the same thing for a long enough period of time, it kind of drains their creative energy. For me, I am kind of like that. And that's why I've changed my content a lot. Like, go back 2 years ago, my content's different than 2 years before then and now. And I bet 2 years from now, I hope that my content will be different than it is here. So I think that streamers and like people that are successful on YouTube, a lot of times, like what happens is that they enjoy doing it, but they might get burnt out, but they can't kind of recharge because a lot of times, like, I think people stop enjoying it as much and they're just doing it for the money in a lot of cases, because it's like, okay, well, now I don't want to do this as much, but I'm making like, you know, 100 grand a month. Like, how am I going to stop, you know, fucking spinning that fucking $100,000 a month crank? Like, bro, I ain't about to quit that. And so, of course, right, it becomes a job, right? Where it's like, for me, like, so like every job then? Well, it depends, right? I mean, what's happened for me is that like streaming is like, that's like, this is my time off, right? As soon as I finish this stream, I have to follow up with OTK Games Expo. I have to look at games we're going to be publishing. I think I have another meeting tonight. I have to make sure I call my dad, probably go over to his house and help him out with stuff. Then I've got to like get dinner. I've got to make sure that I have other things ready. Let's see. Besides that, oh, fuck. There's like other stuff I need to do. I'm trying to remember. Oh, I have to follow with my agent about an opportunity that might happen or might not happen. Then I need to talk about like planning for like another event. Like, I'm doing stuff all the time, right? So like for me, I felt like the like I like streaming. I enjoy Starforge. When we do have the blue PC that's coming out now. Starforge is, by the way, like Starforge is doing like insanely fucking well. Like, it's crazy how good it's doing it. Wow. Thank you. Yeah, everybody who supported and, you know, even liking tweets and stuff like that. It's been fucking nuts, right? There's the video. Make sure to give it a like. This is a great video. Like, I feel like more people need to talk about this stuff with games journalism because it is a huge fucking problem. And I'm so glad more people are bringing it up. Abso-fucking-lutely. So yeah, this is great.